All right.
Okay. Go ahead and start the work session.
Yeah, so we're just gonna talk tonight about prioritization, what projects we know or things we want to get done, and what we can do to I guess, to fit in our budget here, that we have existing. So I figured it'd just be, a time where we just bounce ideas off each other, talk about things. We have the experts here to help us through it as well, and we'll go from there. Stacy, you want to explain this sheet you got? Okay.
So this is the prioritization sheet that we include with our budget. We have projects like these, and so I always say it's a dynamic document, it's a working document, so that as we have the conversation, I can change the numbers on the priorities and resort it. And basically what we're doing is we're backing into this. This is how much money we have to spend on prime contracts. Put it at the top of the page there. And as you prioritize the items, kind of shows you where the red line's going to hit and you run out of money. It's basically what helps you to visualize how far you can go with the money you have based on the decisions you're making, right? So if you put this up above line, this up above line, where does it go? So last time we met, I got really the sense that everybody was thinking, this needs to focus on HVAC. So I took another stab at it, right? So what you see here is not what I'm going to say what it is. It's where we left in the conversation, I think. Now you see on there, for instance, number 3 has, there's still some lighting in that number there. And the reason that is, if you go down a corridor and you tear out ceilings so that you can get piping up there, that's the time to do lights, right? You put them back in the same time. So there's still some of that process. From a budget standpoint, we're still at the conceptual budgeting phase, and you might remember I probably gave you a budget process graphic in my last packet. It says, hey, we're still here, and we're making some really big, broad decisions now about the direction of the project. And as design progresses, we'll be able to get closer and closer on number. We'll watch it close, and we'll try to keep everything in the rail so that on bid day, it is what we say it is. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Right now, we're still really broad, just giving you the information you need to make the hard decisions you got to make. Of course, decisions are a lot easier if you have more money than you need. That's pretty simple. But that's not where most of these things are when we're doing them. So we're just trying to help you get there. Okay. And so Mike and Jeremy here, they're gonna help you walk through details. We kind of unloaded a lot on you last time we were here, so just ask questions, get it going. But right now, I think where the conversation left off was focus on HVAC, and we were still, in my mind, kind of leaning toward the 4-pipe system, as opposed to in high school, as opposed to staying with 2-pipe system. Big advantages to have a 4-pipe system. One advantage is disadvantage is you got to run 2 more pipes everywhere, basically. Right? So we're still in that conversation. So I'll let you guys ask questions, and maybe Mike can give you a review of where we're at with where the piping's got to be and those kinds of things.
Can I ask you real quick about the piping? Is that would be priority number 3 then on this? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And so just to remind you too is, say you put the chiller in and you put pipe around the corridors, the other 2 pipes you need. It's money, but it still doesn't get you to using those pipes in very many places until you get down to that number 9 right there. That's number 9 is say, hey, all the classrooms are going to go put in new vertical unit ventilators with ductwork, from that ventilator across the room into the ceiling. Yeah. And it's going to be far better situation for you. But you can see that's a big ticket item right there. So yeah. And that kind of work too. Let me just kind of encourage you a little bit. is if you say, we gotta wait till we get money next time, that can be done in phases. You can say, hey, we have enough money this summer to do 5 classrooms. We'll come in and do 5 classrooms.
Mhm.
The next summer, 5 classrooms more. So it's something you can phase in at that, in that way. We've done that together in other schools.
What would that, what, can you give me an estimate on how much it would be for like a classroom, like one classroom?
Yeah. So what would you say, $76,000?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it was in
76,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and for people that don't have a paper, number 9 falls after we run out of funds, right?
Yeah.
And the item number 9 is 3.8 million.
Yeah.
So those,
Yeah. And again, that can be broken up
And
into
you're saying we break
small
them up,
pieces
yeah,
too.
okay.
I think one of my primary questions, so obviously there's the comfort factor of going from the 2-pipe to the 4-pipe system, but the primary item is also humidity, dealing with the humidity. I know we have problems, a little bit of problems in both buildings, but definitely the elementary seems to be the primary issue where we're having humidity issues. Am I correct in saying that, Dr. Wolf?
Yeah,
I mean,
John, you would agree, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, so I guess that's my first overall question, and it's a legitimate question, I don't know. We seem to be focusing a lot on the 4-pipe system with the high school, when from everything I have heard from the staff is that the elementary is the primary issue as far as the humidity concern.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so does 6 and 7 fix that issue?
If we have humidity issues, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess just to kind of summarize a little bit of what Stacy said, the list that we provided, I don't want it to be interpreted that, hey, you need to do all of these
Right,
items. It's
yeah.
more of, here are some options. So I guess let's focus on the elementary school with humidity there. Essentially, just to recap what you have, you've got a very large air handler. It's an original little building sitting on the roof. It's pressurizing a tunnel system that then runs underneath all the classrooms. And in each classroom, you've got a unit in there that's got a strip of hot water heat. That's what you're controlling each room with. And that air handler is, I guess, the primary source of what you control all the classrooms with. It's feeding every one of them. So replacing that unit just because of age is a great one. Whether you replace it 1-for-1 or say, hey, we want to do something completely different, we can do either option.
Mm-hmm.
But to solve your humidity issue, yes, that air handler is key to that, replacing the cooling unit and getting adequate controls on that unit to where you can actually dehumidify. Part of the system that you have currently, it's cooling all the air at the air handler and then trying to get it cold enough to get all the moisture out and satisfy all the spaces from a cooling load. And then each of the individual rooms with their hot water heat strip is intended that if you overcool the space because you're trying to get the moisture out, you then use that heat in each of the rooms to heat it back up to prevent you from overcooling the space. And one common approach that some schools take is, hey, it's summertime, let's turn the boilers off and save some energy. And that's a very common approach. The downside is when you're trying to wring moisture out to dehumidify, you got to cool to get the moisture off the coil, but then you end up with really damp, cold air, and you're putting it in a concrete pipe underground that's going to absorb some of that moisture, and then if you never run the boilers to run those reheats, you never really bring that air temperature back up so it doesn't feel so cold and clammy. I don't know if that all makes sense, but with a new air handler, we can start to take an approach of let's cool the air, dehumidify the air, get the moisture out of it, put a reheat coil in the air handler just to lift it up a little bit in temperature so it's not so moist and wet before you stick it in the tunnel.
would it be fair to say, and this is kind of for you and John, that the primary operational issue right now, daily-wise, is the humidity in elementary? Is that kind of the primary, or is there what other items? Because we're not in the buildings every day, so explain to us what
I mean, to me, that's
operational
the biggest issue we've had. Now, some of that issue came because the hot water wasn't running properly in the boiler, correct, John?
Last year.
Yeah, it wasn't, and so therefore it was doing exactly they were just saying right now, it was,
Right.
you know, it was just cold, damp air that was going in the classrooms.
Yeah.
Which created humidity issues. So, yeah.
Do we have a list from your walk arounds and reviews and studies and such? Are there a list of problems that you found in the building, and then from talking to our folks?
Did you get
Is
that?
there? Sorry.
No, I didn't get one either.
No.
Yeah, those
This was from last.
will be really helpful.
Wasn't here.
Oh, you were?
I guess to address your question, the scope of what we were tasked with doing when we were here over Christmas break was to identify major
Right.
component issues and major steps. I can't say that we dove into, hey, this controller is not working, this valve is not working, these things are broken. It wasn't to that degree.
But you would have discovered symptoms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
do we have a list of, and maybe that's in this report that I missed from last week, or last month, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And we had conversations, I don't think John
So
was
the
with
humidity
us that
control,
day,
yeah.
but some of the staff was with us and they walked us through and we talked about concerns in the building, which kind of led to that report that was presented last
I
time.
think Terry from Native Mechanical was here.
Yes.
Correct? He walked with you guys and he does a lot of work. He's done a lot of work on our building. He knows our building very, very well. So, yeah.
And your confidence level, if 6 and 7 get done, what would say your confidence level is that
If we can replace that air handler and make sure we've got good control strategy on it, and then make sure we've got good control strategy within the classroom, I'm fairly confident that we can take care of any humidity
And this
issue you have.
estimate or budget estimate, that kind of included the controls as well, or?
I don't know how
I used, yes, I assumed it did.
we review what we wrote to Stacy.
Here's another question, Mike, that I have as we're talking here is, in those elementary classrooms, there's gonna be a fan shower box, there's gonna be a VAB, anything in there that, for that air to hit and be tempered?
There's currently heat within that's what we would call an induction unit there now.
Induction.
So the presumption is you can continue to use that system as it is today. One approach we've taken in other schools that have similar types of tunnel systems is to remove that induction unit and it's essentially a piece of thin tube radiation and put a VAV box with a reheat coil. It starts to give us the ability to control the airflow and measure the airflow. And I do not have that in this summary, but that is easily something that could be incorporated into a design. And it does provide more control, more ability than what's currently there.
Sorry, could you say again, where would you put the VAV?
So where the induction unit is, it looks like a horizontal, it looks like a unit ventilator, but it's not.
Installed under the windows, yeah.
Yeah, so under the window where the air is currently blowing out, that's what we would call an induction unit that was put in at the original construction. We would remove that partially, take it apart, remove that heating element that's inside, and where the hole through the floor to the tunnel is, we would mount a VAV box over that connection to meter the air as it's coming up out of the tunnel, and then hit a reheat coil so we can control volume and temperature into each individual space. And that is not in the summary, but we can.
It's not in the budget either, probably, the VAB.
But we can work on that.
Right, yeah, I'm just saying, it would be, another $5,000 or $7,000 probably.
Yeah.
For a classroom.
Yeah, I would say 5,000 to 7,000 with controls per classroom. Just kind of order of magnitude.
But what we have in there, it seemed okay, it was just older, or?
It's just old.
Yeah, I mean, with
Original
this budget,
building.
we're gonna use it with,
I mean, there's sure to be some control valves in those induction units that are probably just
yeah.
by sheer number of them, there's probably at least 3 or 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, there's going to be whether you keep it that way or you swap it to that VAV box, there's gonna be some costs there.
Hunter, what's the cause of our humidity issue today then? So if we've got DX on the roof, we're sending sub temperature to the rooms, and then we're doing a reheat under the windows.
Well, and part of the challenge is with DX cooling as opposed to chilled water. The unit you got there now, because of its age, it's just really dumb from a staging standpoint. It's big stages that don't have any modulation control, so it's on or off. And it's kind of like a light switch. It's on or off, there's no in between. With more modern equipment, we can get better staging control and modulation control. And the goal is to keep that coil cold enough to condense the moisture. And if the compressor's constantly satisfying and turning off, and then it turns on, and then it turns on, and it's constantly flipping back and forth, the coil doesn't stay cold. And when you turn the compressor off, you got all this moisture on the coil, and now it's no longer cold, and now you got air flowing across, evaporating all that moisture, and taking it downstream. And so that's part of our control issue, that with more modern equipment, more modern controls, we can start to bring more moisture out of that air. So.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for playing catch up. So there's no plan for 4-pipe in the elementary.
There's always an option, and I'm welcome to talk more about that. I think from
It sounds like there's no need.
a dollar standpoint, I think that's probably our hurdle. That
Yeah, I think we're good with what we use, modern equipment, and use what we have with the tunnels and everything. It's gonna be the most.
And improve the controls with the methodologies that we have today.
better equipment, better controls.
I'd say
better
6 and 7's a go, because I think that takes care of our issue with elementary.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say 6 and 7 become 1 and 2.
Hey Jamie.
Yeah.
When you handed out that packet, did you explain that the thing on the back is not the updated version?
I just told them when I handed it to them.
Okay.
The version that you guys got on the back there, it's not updated.
Let me see if I got extra copies of what I just did.
If not, we just said 1 and 2 would be like the elementary AHU DX unit and the elementary, unit for the West Edition.
I only have 2. Sorry.
And the pricing estimate you've got built in there for items 6 and 7, that is a 1-for-1 functionality,
1-for-1 with modern
stuff.
modern control approaches.
Okay.
But I think,
You have your variable refrigerant valve and.
Yeah, everything's going electronic refrigerant
Yep.
valves now and modulating compressors.
Yep.
So I think the number for that number 6, if we go and talk about those VAV boxes in each of the rooms, that number will go up. And so I think that's probably another iteration here that we can go through. And I can't remember off the top of my head how many classrooms are in the elementary.
2021.
They're on there.
It just had more controls as well. Then I think the heating's already in.
27.
Oh, you're.
They only need to replace a few
So if we
controls.
take our list of that, it's 7,000 box.
But you're doing the
I was
same
thinking
thing.
just
You're
the normal
you're
classroom.
modeling the air like the UAV would.
Do you, are there general numbers that would help the business case of supporting
You
VAVs?
said about 7,000 a classroom.
That's to install.
Yeah.
So business case of what energy savings will be gained by going with VAVs? Because right now I'm not hearing an advantage of doing that.
Where you'll get your energy savings is on your fan energy.
Right.
Because you'll be able to choke that airflow down. And generally, I would say on the fan consumption alone, without accounting the coil reduced load, you're going to save about 15% of the total fan energy across the year. And so depending on what that horsepower is, whether you'll pay back the entire cost of that VAV, probably not. But the incremental cost of, if you were choosing a brand new induction unit, and a brand new VAV box,
You do the VAV.
you'll
sure.
cover that cost.
Yeah.
From an incremental standpoint.
But right now, I think we're just looking at perhaps some updated heater control valves in the heating
And
unit.
I think that's like a project that could be, like you guys said, we can come back and do at a later time, right? Swapping those rooms out to VAVs and more controls, like do 5 classrooms or something, kinda like we talked about in high school.
Did you say
It's,
that?
just from a perspective, it's, under $200,000
Yeah.
to put VAVs in all of this.
But I think what we're doing now is gonna help the scenario greatly, and then if we needed to do more later, we could.
You feel comfortable with that, that's a conservative number, 200,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And the VAVs were part of the help of for the humidity or not?
They will help because we'll get better instrumentation to measure the airflow and throttle that airflow, where if you don't need air in a room, it'll throttle down.
So I don't think it's gonna add to the humidity bit. It would add to an energy savings.
Yes.
The biggest thing that's gonna get our humidity aspects accommodated and improved upon is gonna be the variable control in the DX. Because then we
isn't the cause.
Correct.
Yeah.
So getting variable control in the DX, we can put that coil at 50 degrees F just about all year long. Except when outside temperature is below 50 degrees. Is there air recirculation? We're recirculating the building?
Yeah, there's return air.
Okay, yeah, so we probably, you set the coil at 50 degrees, send 50 degrees to the building, it might be 60 degrees by the time it gets to the room, you heat it up to 65 or 70, whatever the room set point is, but it's full air all the time. Doing a VAV, variable air volume, then you get to dial that back if you don't need as much. So if you only need a 2 degree change in the room, you're less air volume.
So here's there, and I'm asking Mike here, Mike, am I right to think about this? There's a lot more individual control per room and therefore per teacher if you have VAV.
Yes.
You have a lot more control over that space.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah, you can adjust the airflow to that room, off of the main, so.
And I guess, we're in the springtime right now, and your most challenging day to tackle humidity is when it's not sunny, and it's raining, at 65 degrees. Those are the hardest days to control humidity, because it's 100% humidity outside, and it's just driving into the building, and you don't have enough load to really tell that cooling unit just to run wild, because it satisfies so quickly, and that's where you need that reheat energy to drive the cooling and then reheat it to prevent you from overcooling.
And when we had the issue last year, it wasn't that situation at all. It wasn't it was hot days where the air was running for an extended period of time. It wasn't, it may have been humid outside, but it wasn't the cooler temperature with rain or anything like that.
It was August, wasn't it?
It was. It was like, well, it was July.
Do we know the running condition of the unit? With the refrigerant and the coil and the filters and all that? I don't know if we know that, how the refrigerant is in that unit today.
How it is,
Meaning, is it running at full capacity?
as far as I know.
Okay.
That'd be a question for Dave McCain.
Okay.
They came out and looked at it
Yeah.
then, and we got it figured out as far as what the problem was and fixed the issue as much as we could. As far as, you can't fix it, I think it's hard to fix it totally just because of the air handler age and stuff, you know what I mean?
What was the problem then at that time?
It had to do with the hot water.
Had to do with the boiler.
Yeah, the boilers and the hot water, there was no hot water running through to dehumidify. It was just all that cold air, the cold damp air that was going in the classrooms, and there was nothing to help with the dehumidification. That's, I'm not an engineer and HVAC person, but that's to the best of my knowledge.
So we weren't running hot water.
No, there was something wrong with that.
And so they couldn't
the
bring
hot
the
water.
set point of the rooms down, okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And we got the hot water running.
Got it.
In sync, priority 1 and 2 with the elementary, I think I'm very clear on what the marching orders are.
Yeah.
With the VAV, sorry for digging on this. What does it look like in the room? Does that cabinet decrease or change in the room?
Typically what we've done is we've pulled the cover off, done our work inside the box, and put the cover back on, and it doesn't change.
Okay.
The positive and the negative of that is it doesn't change from an air distribution standpoint in the classroom. It doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any worse. It actually improves it. But as far as the person sitting over there and the person sitting over there, it doesn't equalize that airflow.
Right.
We have done projects where we've gone so far as take a duct, put the VAV box coming out of the tunnel, run ductwork across the ceiling, put diffusers in, and do better distribution. I don't know marginally that you gain a lot for your dollar, other than, yes, you're getting better comfort within the room with that corner versus that corner.
But you're talking a lot of dollars to do that to every room.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know that in the case of a $5 million bond, that that's the best use. If this were a $50 million complete building renovation, it would probably be more.
Yeah.
50 million would be cool, wouldn't it?
I think we leave this hanging and see where we're at with these VAVs by the end of the night, see if we can come up with somewhere to get that 200,000 in there. I think we leave that 200,000 for the VAVs hanging, like not as like gone, but definitely a possibility if we can come up with a way.
Well, let me tell you the way the numbers shake out here, just being fully transparent here, okay, is if you look at the red line there, right above it, there's 165 left unallocated right there, at the last item. So you got some money there. I have a bigger than normal contingency because I'm a little bit worried about some stuff on this with lots of different things. So, you know, of course, if we get down to it and we need another $50,000 to make it work, I could go pull that and say, well, measure the risk, you know, do the best we can to measure the risk. But I'm not fully familiar with the risk yet.
Yeah.
So there's some fluff there. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd rather have a good contingency on this one.
So it's more than I normally carry.
Do you have that contingency in each line item?
No, it's a total on the other page on the budget summary. But what's that? Yeah, and here's the other thing, just so y'all know, we do this on every job, is because that red line's a hard line, it's your dollars, right? And bidding is a dynamic and variable process. Budgeting is also. So what we always advise is to design a couple of items past the red line, so that you have something automatically to grab if you come out good at bidding.
Yeah.
All right. So then you bid those things as alternates. So as we get down the line, we'll figure out what can be alternates, whether it's the VAVs or something else in everything that's easy to add or not do. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have a strategy like that for you.
Maybe we have what we want to do and then alternate 1, alternate 2, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely. So
Got it.
so the priorities are important, but that's also got to be a strategy of, hey, we can pull that out without redesigning everything
Right.
too. You know, it's got to be those kinds of things that fall below the line.
Yeah.
And they have to be within a dollar amount that you can grab for easy too. So, but that strategy will come as we go through the process.
With the DX units themselves, is that an all-inclusive unit with air-cooled radiators in the package? Are these rooftop?
Yeah, right now what you have is a large built-up air handler in the mezzanine, and on the roof of the mezzanine is the DX cooling unit that's got refrigerant piping fed down to it.
The condenser is on the roof?
Condenser unit. And so that's the current configuration, and it probably makes sense to go back with that configuration. If there was a desire to make it a packaged unit, we'd have to start talking structure and because that weight becomes more concentrated. So,
Makes sense.
All right, sounds like we have 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready to move to the high school.
Yeah.
I got a question, because the 4-pipe system is a lot of money to not get any value right now. I see your email after was the newer energy recovery heat pump chiller. You brought that up. It sounds like it could be something that wouldn't be too bad for us, I don't know, and be able to still utilize our 2-pipe. I just didn't know how many issues we had with the classroom ventilators we have now in the high school. I guess that may be for John. Are you working on them all the time?
Some of them, yeah.
Because I mean, they're not really we haven't really talked about replacing them in this, but maybe in the next one. But if we didn't, then if we do need to replace those eventually, then that chiller to me doesn't make any sense if we're gonna need to go ahead and do those eventually anyway.
Well, one, I guess, stipulation of that energy recovery style chiller is it doesn't benefit you if you don't have 4-pipe distribution.
It does.
Because you're taking that heat off the chiller, the waste heat that you're trying to get rid of, and you're using that to distribute for reheat energy wherever you need it. But if you don't have 2 sets of pipes, we can't really.
I thought it was kind of be able to go both. I thought I was able to use on a 2-pipe too.
And you can. And there's some energy efficiency gains, mostly on the heating side, that before you fire the boilers in the fall, you continue to use this chiller, and when you decide, hey, we're gonna go to heating mode, the chiller basically reverses into a heat pump mode while the air temperatures are still somewhat mild and you're above, 40 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a heat pump mode, making warm water to your 2 pipes that you have, and you're heating the building with that heat pump essentially. And at some point, you're going to hit a point where the outside air temperatures start to become less economically viable, and then that's when you revert to gas boilers and turn that unit off and go. There is a higher cost for that unit, and once we get into design, if that's an option that you really say, hey, we're really interested in this, we can run the economics of where is the payback? Is the payback short enough to make sense? And I would tell you, if your payback is longer than 10 years, it probably doesn't make sense. And because the life of the unit's gonna be 25, 30 years, and this is newer technology, so I wouldn't really put myself too far out on the limb if there's not a direct payback. So we can look at that if it's something you're
I was just trying to
genuinely interested
be able to utilize that 800,000 if we had a way to put that somewhere else.
You don't like spending that 800,000 and not using it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be something we have to do,
Yeah.
but it's just a lot of money just for
I feel the same way.
we're not, I mean, it's a tough decision, it really is, so I don't know what to do, but.
The challenge is, and this is where the hard decisions come, right, is if you make the decision, we're gonna put that pipe in there, and we're gonna be aggressive about doing 5 classrooms a summer.
Right.
It makes sense. You can't do 5 classrooms a summer if the pipe's not already there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole strategy that we're just trying to put choices out there. It's probably more likely you're gonna be able to pull off 5 classrooms a summer for the next several years than, hey, we're gonna get $3.8 million,
It's gonna be tight.
So just throwing that out there.
I guess as I look at high school, probably what I would recommend are your primary objectives are the age of your chiller and the age of that air handler DX unit on the far west end. Those are the 2 things that you need to do something about sooner than later. Whether you say, hey, we want to talk about the rest of the building or not is really your choice.
That's 1 and 2 here. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yep. And then the question comes in there is, are you gonna live with the 2-pipe system for the next, 30 years? Or are you gonna step it up now and get ready?
And that AHU, that budget cost, that had running 2 pipes to it separate out of the 861, right?
Yeah,
I think that's where I read it.
that includes running piping, assuming you made that decision to go that route, but if you choose not to, we're more than covered. There's some money there that would then be reallocated to let's put another DX unit out there and let's run refrigerant piping, and it's going to be about an even swap.
Sounds like to me that with the condition of the classroom ventilators, the age of them.
Yeah, I'm looking at John to see if you started to have problems with your horizontal units in high school. Dampers, bending and twisting, fan motors failing, those are the failures you're gonna see.
It's harder and harder to be hard.
Classroom ventilators.
So if we have to start replacing classroom ventilators, and can we put in ones that are capable of 4-pipe system but still run them on 2-pipe?
Yeah.
I think that's.
We're not really doing the classroom ventilators right now, though, right?
Well, he was talking about it with them failing. So if say they came to us and said, hey, we've had 2 or 3 classroom ventilators that are just shot, we could
Put in the new
put
style.
in a new style in
Using
there,
half of them.
using
Or half of the unit.
using half of the unit, just like basically trying to figure out a way to stair step to it. Because I agree with John. I hate to put a bunch of money into something that's going to sit there.
But where are you getting extra dollars?
Well, if we have classroom ventilators failing, that would be like if they came to us and said, hey, we have to do it, that'd be where they
But if
call
the mains are already ran, you'd be able to just tie in the mains.
You gotta-
To answer what you're saying,
You gotta figure it out.
we don't have that. Yeah,
Somewhere.
yeah.
Right.
It's kind of that
We
you
don't-
can get.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can
Right.
prepare the classrooms, or you can prepare the distribution.
When we're
Right.
looking at a 1.5% reduction in our operations fund next year, we're not gonna have that.
Right.
I mean, we would have to tap into other means in order to get there.
If one would fail, and we ran the mains this summer for this, or next summer, whatever. If one would fail, I believe, if we had to buy a new one, cause it was completely shot, you could run pipes from that over to your mains, correct? Cause you already got the main there, so you just
That's
go
what
ahead
I
and hook
did,
it up, if you had to buy one. Like if one completely failed.
It's just a matter of what you're afraid.
This is all Greek to me. I have no clue about this stuff at all. So it's I'm hearing a lot of that we aren't going to be able to get to the 4-pipe. There's no way we're getting to 4-pipe with this.
No, there is.
That is in the song.
That's 800.
But
So you're not utilizing it until we start to replace classroom ventilators, whenever
Yeah.
that is.
I guess I have a question.
Okay.
Why is it, explain to me why would we do a 4-pipe in the high school, I mean, stay with the 2-pipe in the elementary? Is it just cost?
Because the elementary, we have the tunnel, correct? So you're blowing the air through the tunnels. Here, we have no ductwork, it's just classroom.
We don't have air
It's a
distribution.
different setup.
Yeah, we don't have the air
Okay, got it.
distribution in
Yeah.
high school.
If I can address that, Jamie.
Yeah.
At the elementary school, we don't have a chiller plant, so there's no chilled water at all.
Okay,
It's all packaged DX units kind of scattered around, so there is no chiller to distribute chilled water
Right.
currently.
okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, got it.
I don't know, maybe this is,
I defer to you guys.
maybe this is too commercial versus industrial, I'm not sure, but I mean, mini splits to cover the cooling, those are getting better. I know it's high maintenance.
Well, I'm looking at Stacy because we've actually been, there's a region in the state where they were very popular a couple of years ago, and we're removing them from schools because
They're very high maintenance.
they don't have the life expectancy, and they're very difficult to get parts once you're 5 years down the road, and the system can collapse very easily just because you can't get the stuff you need to maintain.
Yeah, and I
It's
guess
not something I would
I'm not thinking mini splits, the kind that you see that you put in your house or something, but a little micro chiller that could be shared amongst 3 or 4 classrooms, and you put in a small chill water loop. We keep the boiler loop as is, and we just put in small chill water loops as we do the rooms. And we put in the 4-pipe VAVs with a small chill water loop for that local area. So you might end up with 4 or 5 chill water loops isolated to those areas. Because then we can phase that approach. We can bite it off financially a little bit. It might be a little more upfront cost once it's all done.
I think the challenge with that approach, not an impossible approach, but the challenge is for every small chiller you have, you gotta find a place for the pump. You gotta find a place for an expansion tank. You gotta find a place for a air separator. There's
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
square footage.
I'm just thinking a little outdoor package unit or roof mounted package
But
unit.
you're adding that much more that needs to be maintained
Yep,
and watched, and
You're
you're
right.
adding that, you know,
Yes.
we don't have the manpower
I
to.
think we'd regret it in 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
I think.
If it's something that requires more maintenance, then yeah, probably.
It would. I'm certain it would.
We need to look at things that are more like hammers, not like computers.
It's a thought that somebody in 5 years is gonna be mad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
Just being honest with you.
yeah, we wanna do the opposite.
Yes.
So I think we're good with the chiller and the AHU.
Yep.
The high school office chiller, or chiller, the AHU in the office. Do you have issues with it, John? But I think all we had in here was,
It's a smaller unit.
Yeah, really the driving factor there was a conversation with Nadine Mechanical about the lack of temperature control because there's 2 reheat coils that control basically the outside rooms and then there's one for the inside room. So there's just 2 thermostats and there was a comment that, hey, it'd be really nice if we could get better space control. And if that's not a critical need, I mean, we can leave well enough alone.
So, well, essentially what I'm hearing is it's just a matter of convenience.
It's a
Yeah.
so, but if the air handler is good, could you go ahead and that would save money, but go ahead and add the VAV like you're talking about to individualize it with the air handler we have? Or-
Yeah, we'd have to do a little bit extra work to modify back there. We'd have to modify some controls, but it's feasible.
You think that unit's okay for a while, or
What in the office?
for the high school?
In the office?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
know, it's just,
You haven't had any issues with it?
know.
Yeah.
Not that much.
Was that one of the ones that was put in 1993 or do we know the year on that one?
I'm checking to see if I've got that.
Well, that's a 225
mhm.
savings there.
Yeah, I would move it more to the bottom.
I think the big thing on that is just to be the age of
It's
it.
right here, number 3. Oh, you don't have the year on.
Yep.
20 years ago.
Yeah, that'd be a 20-year unit.
Well, that was the back one, that was for
Well,
the,
I think it was put in at the same time as that other paragraph, so I think it's of the same era. So 20-year air handler, and as
the one
long
I'm
as you're,
talking about is number 5.
oh, yeah, it's a different bullet point. However, I think it was put in at the same time as the 2-pipe system from the Durkin project 20 years ago. So an air handler, as long as you're placing bearings, belts, filters, you should get 40 years out of an air handler.
I'm with them, I'd say it's more, that's more. convenient.
I think we would almost make like the ductwork, or the office control, almost like an alternate.
That makes sense.
And that could be one of our alternates maybe, and then we can see where we're at once bids come in.
Right, if there's any dollars left.
Yeah. I think we leave the unit and the DX and gamble that one, but then if there's extra money, we could add some better control in there.
I guess one thing just to be aware of when that DX unit does tank, with the new refrigerant requirements, when you replace the unit outside and you go to a new refrigerant on the DX unit outside, the coil inside the building, it's not as simple as, hey, I just want to hook up to the old coil and use the new refrigerant, because new refrigerants
Surface area.
have a flammability, and the UL requirements require them to now have instrumentation to measure for leaks. If there is a leak, it's got to automatically turn the fan on to try to dissipate that leak. So when that unit outside fails, that will trigger a larger cost to deal with the air handler inside, because you can't just slip a coil out and slip a coil in. because of the UL listing, the manufacturers are basically saying, we won't do that. They want to sell you a new unit and a new unit that meet all the UL requirements for these flammable refrigerants. So just
So
be
this
thinking about that.
this 861,000 doesn't come with a coil for the inside the building?
It does.
Okay.
It was replacing the air handler
Right.
and the unit on the roof
So what you're saying
and the
is,
ductwork.
as far as maintenance goes.
Yeah.
I think 61 was just the piping.
Okay.
We're down.
We're down to the number 4, 225.
Yeah, 225.
The office unit.
That was to replace the air handler,
Okay.
replace the cooling unit connected to it,
Okay.
modify the ductwork to add a VAV box for each office space.
Okay. No, I understand. I apologize. I was still thinking back on that. So we're
The
just
number-
still in the office.
The number you gave us though does everything that you're talking about, correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you have to consider whether you wanna invest improving what you have, and then next year that outside unit going down, and then you're not in a very good situation for your investment you did.
Yeah, so
It's a risk, it's just a risk you have to
so
know about.
I think it makes, it's a risk, but I wouldn't put it at the top of the priority.
Right.
So if we could just make number 4 an alternate.
Number 4, total replacement, or number 4 with a change of mindset of, hey, we're gonna make this, do this to make it more comfortable.
I think the total replacement.
Yeah.
Total
I
replacement.
think it's gonna be all or nothing if we do it.
All right, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, what we're doing here is we're prioritizing it.
I think we have the money, we do that.
Technically.
Yes, I agree.
What about the media center?
That one was number 3. And that one was one that you really suggested replacing, if I remember right.
Yeah, the media center is item number 5 on the list.
Yeah, the new list, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, that was a unit that I put eyes on because the door was locked the day we were here and nobody had a key to get the door open. So I was shared a photograph from TechCon, so I will tell you, I haven't physically seen the air handler myself other than through a photograph.
So if it's messed up, blame it on Tech. That's what it's saying.
So,
Write that down.
based on age and based on the age of the outdoor unit, it should be on your list of things to look at, but we could go look at it tonight when we're done, and I can give you a better assessment, but based on age, it's in the same category.
Help me understand, this is right when I came on last year. We did something with the media center. We replaced, what did we replace
That
last
was the
year?
library one, wasn't it, John?
Yeah.
It's
That's the
it's
same
same
thing.
Same one?
Yeah. What did we do
That
there?
pipe running all the way to the back, like to the art room music.
Do you remember what?
We replaced the coil or something, didn't we?
On the library, it was the compressor for the air conditioning.
Is
Okay.
that the same air handler that we're talking about that's feeding it looks like maybe it's feeding the art room and or not the art room, but that's the whole thing, the library and that on the back?
It's just the library.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
a
just a
library.
It's just the library.
They're just using media center as a fancy
So,
way to
Yeah,
say
sorry.
it.
So the air handlers for that, I was trying to look at this little sketch you have.
That's not.
Oh, that was for a different
That's-
bullet point, I'm
That's not
sorry.
this.
Number 2's not?
No, yeah.
Go
Yeah, that would have been
It's
back on
5 or 6.
item number 6.
Oh, okay. Alright. Yes, that one needs replaced, correct, John? Or did we fix it last fall?
The media center?
Yeah.
Well, we put a new compressor in the air conditioning unit. And that fixed that.
Do you think it needs replaced?
Yeah, cause that unit's like 30 years old.
Okay, number 6 is a go then. Wherever that's at on our
Number
list.
5.
Number
Yeah.
5.
Well, I got 2 lists here. This says 6, this says 5. 5 on this list is a
Yeah,
go.
on the new list.
140, yes.
Yep.
The one that I was looking at that I thought we were talking about was the Fine Arts Edition, number 2.
And that's the one that I.
That's the one you couldn't see.
No, I actually got to see
Okay.
that one. It's the media center library unit. I didn't get to see the indoor unit anymore. But the age of that DX unit, you're at the end, it's an R22 unit. You've already phase out R22 and we're phasing out 134A and 407C and 410A and it's 2 phase outs of it.
Getting rid of all the good ones.
This eliminates the DX unit, you're gonna run chill water to it and make it, is that the way I'm seeing this
We
right?
have the option to either just replace it with DX for DX. But I think the concept was if you made the decision, hey, we want to put chilled water distribution in, that was me offering, hey, let's tie it into the chilled water plant.
Mm-hmm.
We could also look at tying it into the chilled water, hot water plant, but you're constrained by the same conversation of if the chiller's off, that unit doesn't get any cooling. And if that's workable, we can absolutely do that. When we start to get into that corridor ceiling down that north hall, and absolutely can do either option.
So the 339, did that include running that pipe in your budget that's shown in that little sketch?
Yes.
Because I see the same pipe kind of ran on the sketch where you actually have the whole.
Yes, that was in my number that I was sharing with Stacy, and I'm assuming you carried that.
See what I mean? It's kind of ran.
Well, I think this is all part of
No.
That's part of
That's what I'm saying. So it's like that
Phase
pipe
one.
almost double budgeted or not?
No,
So it's
We
not
only
in the
counted it
X61
once.
price.
we only counted it once.
Okay.
So so running 2 pipes is in this price, running 2 more pipes is in the other price.
No, like this, that probably shouldn't have been. It's just an option. I see what he's saying. Like he included it in this price in case we didn't do this, but they didn't add it again in this price.
So if we didn't do option, if we didn't do the 339, the 861 is gonna get higher.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're doing the 339, right? I mean, that's
I think-
number 4 on the list that we had.
Yeah, and I
We
guess,
had 1 and 2, the elementary, 3 and 4, the high school chiller, and the AHU.
I thought we.
Yeah, I have the priority list as 6, 7, 1, 2, 5 right now.
Yep.
Where are
That's
you
what I
at, Jonathan, on your priority list?
I don't see this
I've got
number
the same as you.
2 on this page.
it's, item number 2 on this, it just says AHU.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
just
just looking
AHU.
at, let me tell you what it
Okay.
says. The cell didn't expand, I'm looking at my computer, sorry about that. I'm laughing, it says high
Oh, you
school
got a second
fine,
one.
it says high school fine arts, AHU, DX unit with, chilled water, AHU.
Okay.
It's all of that, I'm sorry, it didn't come out in the cell paper.
And I guess my recommendation, if you're gonna replace that unit, that would be a great time to tie it to the chiller, because we're gonna be replacing the chiller anyway.
Yeah.
We can account for that tonnage with a slightly larger machine to pick up that wing. And now you're cutting down on the number of pieces and parts that John's gotta maintain for compressors and refrigeration.
Coming into chiller, so power availability, all that's.
Yeah, well,
It's
look at
available.
the electrical service, but I think we looked at, there's room to go up a bucket size. Within, we'll go up a few sizes within the bucket.
And this,
I think if we're,
is this, but this isn't all in, this is an air handling unit.
yes, it's a DX unit now.
Where, how is it heating? Is there heating in this
That's
unit?
hot water there now.
Hot water coil now?
Yeah.
Gets nothing on that. So this becomes lower if you just keep it DX.
Mm-hmm.
So swap it 1 for 1.
But if you're doing a 4-pipe system, it's more efficient just to have the chilled water, so you're gonna save money on efficiency, correct? You're gonna save money, like, if we didn't go back DX, and we did run the, if we're doing the chilled water, you're gonna save on efficiency.
Standpoint, I don't know that there's
I don't think so. Not with
You
the,
know?
not with the new DX.
but from a control standpoint, you'll get better control of your discharge condition coming off the coils, because you can modulate a coil a lot easier than you can in a compressor. So you'll get a little bit better comfort control with a water coil or a refrigerator coil.
Yeah, but you can still get decent enough control out of the newer DX unit with the reheat coil. I mean, that's not hard.
It's easier with chilled water.
Agreed, but it's not hard.
Really, I would say the motivation is if you want to eliminate a piece of compressor equipment that you don't have to maintain, you just put it back on the main shelf. That's really probably the best motivation to do it.
Cost wise, one versus the other on that one was
Cheaper going DX.
cheaper to go DX. By how much? What was that rough?
What do you think you got in piping in that?
I think we're trading, if we go DX, we've got to run new refrigerant pipe, new refrigerant. We got to buy a new outdoor unit. I think we're trading those dollars for the piping. The add cost is going to be tearing the ceilings apart, putting them back, and putting new lights in. That's probably the delta that you're
So
adding
your
more.
disruption is
for
going
that
to be
option.
more with the chilled water.
More disruption with chilled water.
Which is cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your DX is pretty much a 1-for-1, but improved performance.
Yeah.
I guess this could also be a phased
Right.
thing because it works today.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm ignorant enough to it. It may be one of those that I need to see that spelled out in a way to where I can actually process it.
Go get some crayons.
Yes, please. Make it small like
Can you also bring crayons to explain it to me? Because
I follow them about half.
what number are we on? 3?
So right now, we have 5 priorities, that's what I have, right?
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
5
too.
I
priorities.
have 5, yeah.
Elementary, high school chiller,
Yeah.
air handler unit, and then the high school media center.
Let me read off mine, make sure I got it right.
Okay,
Now listen.
you read yours.
Yep.
Okay, I've got priority number 1 is 6.
Yes.
Priority number 2 is 7.
Yep.
Yep.
3 is 1.
Yep. 4
4 is 2, and 5 is 5, and 4 is an alternate.
Yep.
So far, that's where I'm at.
Yep.
I think the scope of number 2, priority 4 is still in question.
Did you ask what the rough price difference would be on that 339?
Where are we at with number
Yes,
3
I think
on
that-
this
You
list?
asked what that would go
We
down.
never-
We decided
So the
elementary
only delta we're looking at there is
is
the
more important than the
Correct.
destruction
But did we ever,
of the fall.
we never did anything with this, cause
So he
we're,
thinks
that's a hard
it's gonna be about a wash.
Get everything
material,
clean and
That's the
walk
2 pipe to
on
4 pipe.
refrigerant.
Number 3, that is
Yeah.
currently number 3 on this,
Versus-
that's the
Yeah.
2 pipe to 4 pipe, and we never,
We haven't done anything with that yet.
we
All
talked
the
about
lights,
it and then
too.
went away
And the
from
lights,
that.
I think it's because
It's a lot of money and
Yeah.
it doesn't
So
do
we don't
anything
kinda know what to do.
immediately.
Yeah.
There's no instant gratification for
Right.
doing that.
For
Yeah.
what?
Say what? I'm sorry.
Number 3.
Right, and we're not in control of what's gonna happen later, so it'd be better if all that gets done at once. It's kind of the train of thought, right, for number 3. So
Well,
we
on
haven't put that
today's
in.
pricing, you need almost $5 million.
And I'm
that's
not
what I'm
comfortable, I'm not comfortable spending anything that we don't reap the benefits of.
Correct, because we're already at a tight
We're
budget.
spending just under $1 million we're not gonna use right now.
Right.
That's what you're saying, right?
Yes,
Brad?
yeah, and
Yeah.
I can't feel good about that.
I would,
So tell me the negative though. If we don't change from 2 pipe to 4 pipe now, what does that keep us from doing in the
You're
future?
kicking the can down the road
Okay.
a little bit. You're losing some efficiencies, and we still have to figure out what to do in the classrooms for controls when the temperature outside is between 55 and 70. Right?
Well, we have to, so we don't ever have to change out from a 2 pipe to a 4 pipe.
No.
Well, the reason why we're gonna do that is because when we're in that tweener time where it's, 60 to 75 degrees, it's hard to
manage.
manage the temperature. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's lots of 2 pipes that
You have
people
to electric reheat.
perfectly
Yeah.
satisfied with. There's lots of them that people hate.
Yeah,
Anything of that.
okay.
That's why I asked about that chiller the first time, if it was capable of keeping us with the 2 pipe system. and solve this issue? That,
The heat
the
recovery
heat
chiller?
recovery chiller.
Well, yeah, that's where, going back, if you don't have a use for that hot water, it really doesn't help you in that regard. Where it can help you is in those shoulder heating periods that you can use it to try to offset running your boiler plant and purchasing gas. Instead, you're using electricity and trying to get more efficiency out of the machine.
What about electric reheat in the room?
It's cheap.
Electric's cheaper than gas.
It's cheap to put in, but it's horrible to pay for when you operate it.
I was gonna say, that would be not very cost efficient.
It's 100% efficient.
Yeah, it's 100% wasting electricity is the joke.
So I'm getting myself back on track here because still, I think at some point there's gotta be a decision of we're long-term married to two pipe and that's the kind of chiller we're gonna put in, our air handlers are gonna be that, or we're long-term four pipe and we're gonna start adding these things, but the risk is we buy a chiller that accommodates that and it's 15 years before we get around to it, and then you only have 5 years left on that chiller you paid for.
Yeah.
That's the huge risk.
If we're set on four pipe, the smartest thing to do is put the four pipe in first.
Yeah.
So it's down behind us, and then as money allows, we start buying the equipment to support it.
And if you're say, okay, we're gonna live with two pipe, well, here's what you can do is put in that equipment, and instead of doing pipe down corridors, which we've got $861,000 for, you do some classrooms with new unit ventilators that are two pipe. If you're gonna stay with what you got. I'm just saying, big decisions, but you gotta start thinking about what you're married to long term,
And if I can jump on what you just said, if you know you've got bad unit ventilators that have bad motors, bad dampers, and you're going to be replacing, the incremental cost to add in that second coil, that'd be the cheapest time to ever do that. And even if it's 20 years from now, that coil's not going to go bad sitting there as long as it's plugged on the ends. And maybe it's better money to spend to address units that you know you're having maintenance issues with, and start picking those off, and maybe.
And he's talking four pipe long term.
So
Maybe that's 15 years down the road.
So that was the chicken or the egg deal.
You're saying not run, am I getting this right? You're saying don't run the piping that needs for a four pipe system, and instead change the unit ventilators out to accommodate the four pipe in case you
Down the
ever
road.
want to run that later on down the road.
Right, and you don't have to do them all at once. You can do two here,
Yeah,
one here,
he's
one
saying
there.
as more of a maintenance, replacement aspect.
Yeah.
As these things fail, instead of dumping 50% of the cost into repairing what's there, go ahead and do 100% of the cost of replacing new for that unit at the time. It's a cheap date to throw the second coil in.
And we're
For
working
a four
backwards,
pipe.
but eventually
A
down the
little
road.
bit.
Down the road.
Yeah.
But you're getting 861,000 worth of unit ventilators in right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
How many classrooms is that?
It's stuck and everything. I can't remember what you said.
I don't know.
76,000
Just
classrooms.
to switch out,
70 something.
you don't have to do nearly you still might have some aesthetic issues to deal with.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do
Yeah.
some casework on either side. We'll have to run some power, because it'll need a dedicated circuit where they're probably strong.
So, yeah, and we might better still say 76,000 per room. You're not gonna have the piping
Right.
as much,
We wouldn't be all of that.
but thinking about it, yeah.
I'm gonna jump back to what one of you said a few minutes ago. Because as we're sitting here talking about replacing stuff that should have been replaced years ago, I can get on board with not doing the four pipe, because there's no guarantee that half of us will still be here in 2 years, and there's no guarantee that there will be any follow through on that.
So we know that the unit ventilators, as we replace those, that's gonna be a functional item. It's gonna get us, like you said, it seems like it's backward, it's really just reverse of what we,
Right.
you know.
And it's a good way to do it. For
Yeah,
us.
and
For
so
us, yeah, I agree.
to think cost and whatnot, so if we look at these ventilators, let's say you spend 100% replacing it one for one. with the new fancy one. For maybe 115%, you're gonna put in one that has a second coil ready for a 4-pipe, if we're dreaming down the road that we're gonna do that.
Right.
So after all of our debt services are properly managed and in a good place and we're able to go for additional funding, maybe at that time, we're able to do 4-pipe. But for right now, it makes good sense to spend the 15% extra on the ventilators for the second coil, have it sit there, because it's only 15% that we're then not using instead of 100% that we would not be using a pipe.
Yeah, I think either way, we're investing in it, but we're getting use out of it.
Right.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind too is we will have a bond rolling off in 2030
Mhm.
to where in 5 years
So this could be planned in
we
advance.
could be,
Right.
we could,
We're gonna have a
And
lane.
so
we could do that.
we could have a plan in place over the 5 years to be replacing these
at least
ventilators.
now we're using.
Maybe then
yeah.
you can spend that.
I think the hard part is I think we don't want to spend the money on something and not be using it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's.
I think we have a lot of stuff that needs attention rather than investing at this point.
And,
Right.
and with that, I mean, I know we're covering a lot, and I wasn't here last time either. So the room controllers, would that be included in the ventilator cost? Okay, that's what I thought, I'm just making
That'd be
sure.
the time to replace the
Yeah.
controls for that room.
Cause that's taken out with up with duct work in the class and everything.
That's what that 76 included
Yeah.
was
Okay.
vertical unit, new ceiling, new ductwork, new lights.
But we don't have to go to that extent.
You don't have to. We could look at a horizontal unit if you just wanted to kind of stay consistent, but
Yes.
it's more that long-term question of where do you want to be.
The horizontal unit versus the Dutch stuff, that is strictly just a comfort in the room, like,
Yeah, a big
close to
part of
that.
it's noise.
Yes.
Those horizontal units are kind of distracting for an educational setting. Just the noise is probably the biggest downfall. And then the second thing is, you got your heat and air conditioning in the corner over here, and there's some kids sitting over there.
right,
So the
right.
circulation in the room is not that great.
What is the cost difference from one version of that to the other?
Significant.
Yeah, you're not
Say that,
redoing the
yeah.
ceiling and the lights and the duct work and everything.
Yeah.
And those horizontal units we'd be replacing those and they'd still be capable of 4-pipe if we,
Yes.
down the road?
What we have now is horizontal units.
Right, that's what I'm, so
You
we go,
can get those with 4-pipe.
personally, to me, that makes sense at this juncture where we're at.
So then we're dropping off what is number 3 on this one and pulling up number 9, but a little different than what it was
I'm
on
just
here.
gonna say we're using,
What money
we're
we
gonna have
can
number
do as much
6
as we can of 9.
is going to be horizontal unit ventilators. That's what we're gonna say.
Number 6 on our priority list.
Right.
Of our new priority.
New priority.
The new priority.
Read it off to me again so I can write it down.
So, hang on, so number,
So,
right, well, I don't,
Number 9 is gonna be 6. Priority 6.
is it?
So it's gonna be 4-pipe ready, horizontal unit ventilators, as many as we can get. So there's your
Okay,
real
so-
alternate is
so
how
that-
many unit ventilators
That's
can
what
you
we got
get?
left over.
Yeah. It's like,
Alright.
it's like you bid the number you know you're real comfortable to get, and
So if
and
you want,
alternate for how
so,
many.
so that challenges you. So if you want all the ventilators, then you gotta bid it really well.
That's right.
alright, Stacy, will you go over those numbers with me again? So is 7 1 now or 6? Did we turn 6 into
Wanna go
another
through them
one?
all again?
No.
Never mind, Brad will just let me cheat off at his paper.
The only one I just changed was I made number 3 on the original list to be number 6 and change it to horizontal unit ventilators, 4-pipe ready.
And then 4 was an alternate. No.
Yeah, right. But that may not be an alternate because it may be more unit ventilators.
Right.
This would be Frank.
Which I guess,
Oh, we
Maybe.
may drop it and just do ventilators.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
I've done a lot of them this way too. If you have the room.
I brought some photos that are being passed down. I don't think we have to necessarily put a nail in what type of unit ventilator today, because I think there's options within
Yeah.
the concept, and I've shared some photos of here's an option of a vertical unit that's just sitting in the room and blowing out the top of the unit. There's an option with exposed ductwork coming out of it. There's an option with ductwork covered in a bulkhead. There's an option with duct above the ceiling, and there's different price points for each of those. So as we work through the design, I think we can talk about, we've got option 1, 2, 3, and 4 within this category.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only difference in these is just appearance, essentially, yeah.
And then when we're drawing this, or designing this, it'd be whatever the ones we have the most issues with, we do first. And I don't care if one's on this side or one's on this side, essentially, I think, we pick our worst ones.
Yeah, you pick your worst ones and then with whatever's left, which there probably will be, the rest of them will fall in the same category of old. Get systematic with your progression.
So you're saying 76 a classroom, you circled a little bit, but I think you ended up coming back thinking that it still could be 76 a
It
classroom.
won't be, if we don't do distribution in the ceiling, it won't be 76.
Okay, so
When you do distribution in the ceiling, you're doing ceilings, you're doing lights, it's everything.
So what are your thoughts then on the horizontal two coil ventilators, then cost wise, what?
Well, that could probably be as low as, Mike might correct me here, but that could be as low as
You're not gonna build,
30.
you're building
So that's the controls, you're talking about running power, we gotta get power to these units and controls to these
the
units.
unit
So
ventilator itself might be 15,
Mhm.
and then you got some piping and a little bit of this.
What do we do?
That's half cost.
We already got unit ventilators in.
I'm
Yeah, we
sorry,
don't have-
what's 30?
One classroom,
Okay,
if you do a horizontal, simple
Yeah.
unit ventilator,
one for kind of what we have now.
yes,
One for
like
one.
what you got. You
Okay.
could probably get it down
Pipe ready.
to $35,000 class.
So it's possible we could do all of them.
How many rooms?
I don't.
27?
That was the other one.
27. Oh,
That was 27, I think.
that was all me.
Oh, okay.
I said it so confidently though that everybody believed
really
it.
Well, you're usually right.
27.
27?
That's
Oh,
How many? Okay. So
That's
let's
just
say, let's say 30.
It's a rough number.
Yeah, that's
Top
810.
30.
810 right there.
And that's something we can use right away. And we would be doing that anyway with a 4-pipe system.
Well, the only
It's just-
question that hadn't been asked is do we have humidity issues, are we still gonna have those for a little
It
bit?
won't
Yeah.
make that any better.
Yeah, I don't know if we do at the high school.
Well,
The high school
let
has
me,
a complaint.
let me restate that. The new units, I would recommend that they come with what we call face and bypass damper
Yeah.
that allows us to,
Recert the room.
we can do a little bit of dehumidification with the face and bypass control process that you don't have now, so we can make it a little bit better.
And then if we ever did potentially have more funds, then we could can we size the chiller to go ahead and do the 4-pipe system down the road?
It wouldn't change the size
It
of the
doesn't change
chiller,
that.
We're good, okay.
because the chiller's already feeding chilled water. to all these
The only
things.
thing that
So
changes
then later
the size
down the
of
road,
chiller
then we
is
can
library.
invest this number, whatever that number is, whenever that comes, and tie all these in, correct?
Correct.
That puts the piping will be the big cost then, I assume. That, right?
And that starts to give you the ability of, this room wants cooling, but this room needs heating in those transition periods because of different exposures
Yeah.
on the north side versus the
Yeah.
south side.
But now we're fixing a lot of broken equipment.
But your face and bypass dampers that he's talking about, that's right, because that can give you much more individualized
Yeah.
control.
We're doing a lot of this, fixing a lot of issues, so if we go this route
I
now.
agree.
John, I got a question.
That's 8.
High school cafeteria, what are those units we have in there?
It's like, so it's in the classroom.
Okay. Are those,
Like that one really loud one?
Uh-huh.
Working.
yeah, are those,
Do it for working.
yeah, so that's, to
We
me,
can
that's
throw
an
them on here,
82, it's not just the 27, man.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that was,
I think I,
did you count all 3 of those too?
oh, no, I did not. I did not have
So
three of
that
those there.
would be 30.
So it's roughly,
$900,000.
Okay, so we're roughly a
We
swap.
could get a lot of them done.
Yeah,
Even if a couple classrooms get missed.
I just wanna make sure
Take care of it.
that's, I think that's
But
yeah.
one we need to look at, cause it's.
Yeah.
If they're on top of the list, dude, then.
But that's where we didn't find out which classrooms.
But if we're
Yeah.
900, so if we're 900 to do them all, we're right now sitting within budget.
And we're currently trying to do an alternate of 225.
You're not quite, let me tell you why, because we just added $200,000 of VAVs over at the
No,
elementary.
that's an alternate.
And then we turned the high
But we
school
could-
AHU
I like
office
it.
one into an alternate too.
Don't get crazy on me.
But also we have 861,000 to spend.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we're looking at 900, so we went up 39,000.
you're right, at one point we said we were gonna do that, but I think we did look at the other.
But the
Did we-
aesthetics,
Yeah.
Do we nix off those corresponding aesthetic improvements for number 8 on this list?
So
When you
here's
voted.
why I have that on there, is we don't know, right? When
Okay.
you go in and start messing with stuff, you say, oh, this is just an HVAC project. No, it's not. It's whatever you touch also, right? So
Okay.
I'm not into it enough to know what that is, so I just gotta plug them.
so you'd like to keep that there.
Yeah, well, I will keep it, yeah. And I'll give it back to you as design progresses if we don't use it.
But that's not in your contingency number, or that's
That's not my
your
contingency
contingency number.
That's, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I can't go do this job without messing some stuff up.
Sure.
But if we don't do the high school AHU one, the office, that's 225. That would be
Oh,
really,
yeah.
we would be really close on dollars, probably a little under, but really close to do the unit ventilators and the VAVs at the high school, I think.
The point is, right?
Mike just brought up the point though, that when we replace the horizontal unit ventilators with the new 4-pipe capable, unit ventilators, they are going to be a touch longer, so we will be getting into some of the metal casework, and we need to take a good look at that, verify some sizes, and then come up with the least impactful solution to address that.
Yep.
So, to the point about having some monies there to address some of the aesthetic things that we touch,
Mhm.
that's something.
Mhm.
So, and we can offset it, so we can either push the unit vent to one side or the other, so we're not displacing 2 cabinets when we can only displace 1.
If we get this list for you guys tonight, and then you guys start digging into some of this stuff, we can come back in 2, 3, 4 months with maybe a better budget of where you guys feel like where we're at, and then we can nitpick
We'll
all the little
progress that
stuff.
budget, we're just being responsible with the budget
Yes.
right now,
Yeah,
but we're definitely.
but we could reconvene before the bid, or 3 or 4 months from now, when you guys got a better idea.
I think we have to.
I'd say we're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
I
finally,
think that's when you guys
This
kind of
is,
do
this
that.
is one of several meetings, I'll tell you that. So.
Yeah, Jonathan, we're still sitting in the starting block.
Yeah.
We haven't started drawing.
Yeah, we're crunching numbers, you guys are trying to get the idea of where you want to crunch.
Just to come back, so you had thought that the VAVs for elementary were in.
Yeah.
So let's
I
just
did
retouch
think
that quick, or I had it in my head, I have that marked down as alternate.
Yeah, I think if we have the extra money, I think it's definitely something to invest in, if we can find the money. So.
But
He says we don't.
if we look at the numbers here,
You may.
if we look at the numbers here, maybe I'm wrong, but can't we do the VAVs at the elementary if we just sub out the office?
That's what I was.
The office was 225 and the VAVs were 200,
Yeah,
so
that's
is it
what
a
I'm
one
saying,
for
man.
one thing?
That's what it looks
I'm gonna
like.
manipulate that right now on my spreadsheet.
Potentially, yes. We're going high on the 861 by swapping that with the horizontal ventilators in the high school.
So how many horizontal ventilators you say we have?
30.
30.
So 900.
So I'm gonna go 30,000 each times 30. That's 900,000. I'm typing that in right here.
I think we're close.
I think
It's very.
We meet in a couple months, and I think we could really
As long as we
figure
don't get it
out
all
what we're gonna
dirty,
do.
it'll be okay.
I think that's a good, I think you're gonna be able to get you don't do the high school air handler, you're gonna be able to get those VAVs and place out and do the horizontal, ventilator.
Yeah.
So essentially, we're just subbing out what's here, and we're just putting the VAVs in for if we look total, all in, that's what we're looking, that's what we're
Yeah,
doing.
that would basically just go to
Yeah.
VAVs at elementary.
And if we come up a little shy, we can always kick a couple of unit ventilators down the road if it has to be.
So here's one thing I'm gonna do, guys, I'm gonna manipulate what we said a little bit here. I'm gonna take my aesthetic improvements and make it number 1, so you don't take it away from me. I'm running it below the line.
I didn't
And then I'm
put a
gonna renumber
priority.
all your stuff, guys' stuff by one, -1.
Don't do that, cause then I gotta remark all these.
Yeah, I'll
He's gonna
send
print us a new
this,
one.
I will send this to you all once
Okay.
I manipulate it, I'll send it to you tomorrow.
That's
Alright, so that makes
really good.
sense. Alright, so what do we feel good about that?
I think we're.
Mhm.
Really
I think it's good for
I feel
now.
like making a big bang.
Can
for what
we
yeah.
just quickly step through the rest of them here to make sure we're not missing any priorities? So it looks, and if I can just talk out loud here, so the electric service and panels, fire alarm, is there any, what was it with the fire alarm?
I think we had said that those were
There it is.
almost all the
You
electrical
guys
service
already
stuff.
talked about that and I missed it?
Yeah,
Okay.
almost all the electrical service stuff, the fire alarm stuff, intercom, we just basically.
It all
flushed
works,
that
it's
out.
just getting older. is
Right.
what-
Okay.
Right, it's,
I mean, we would like to do the lighting just because of cost savings, but it's,
Are there not, when LEDs got popular, there was all sorts of government support where you got to swap those things for nearly free.
Yeah.
Are those around anymore?
Who's your electric provider down here?
Rush Shelby.
Okay.
They go through Who's Your Energy.
We'd have to talk with your utility provider. The bigger ones like the AEPs and the Dukes, they have prescriptive rebate programs where you've got a 2-lamp fluorescent, 32 watt, we'll give you $63 to yank that one and put an LED back. And they have those set up. The smaller utilities, it's harder to find those opportunities.
I knew at one time Rush Shelby did have them, but that's been a few years ago when it was, the thing, but I know at one time that
Something to
was.
look into.
I wouldn't mind some alternate ways of getting that done.
There is some
Yeah.
legislation at
Got
the
an electrical
federal
program.
level that exists, I think it still exists, things are changing rapidly, but it was a energy related program where previously schools and nonprofits and basically if you didn't pay taxes, you couldn't benefit from a tax benefit that a for-profit organization could, that you could take a tax deduction. They changed that legislation a couple of years ago where now nonprofit entities can basically take a direct payment from the federal treasury in lieu of that tax credit because they recoup that opportunity.
Mhm.
I'll be honest, the current administration is chopping a lot of those programs. I don't know if it still exists or will exist, but
if it is, we better get on.
I think, so Shelbyville just recently, Shelbyville Schools, they got a grant from Duke to do that, to upgrade some.
Duke is good about that.
So I'm not sure if Rush Shelby,
I would tell you, I think Bob mentioned last time we were here, our electrical engineer, that your payback on an LED fixture in a school environment generally is gonna be about 2.5 years of just straight payback. You'll get your money back. Anything that's outside that's burning on a photo sensor, it's generally 1 year to a payback on.
So finally, we'd have to, I don't know how divided our electrical bill is, how we could dig in and see what our cost is in all these different areas of the buildings.
We have one bill.
I don't know that the billing is a big deal. I think probably the bigger thing is if I can get a contact with the utility and have a conversation of what opportunities they have, we can at least run some
Okay.
recommendations off that.
Yeah,
Okay, you're able to take that on?
Mhm.
Okay.
Would we all be in
That would
agreement
be the-
that the next thing on the list after the HVAC stuff we've talked about, the next thing is lighting?
Yeah, if we got the money for it,
If
and have
there's- if there's-
opportunities, then
If
yeah.
opportunities show up or we
Absolutely.
have alternatives, that's, of everything else on the list, lighting's the next.
after what we already put on the alternative.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just saying,
Yeah, I
Another
know.
thing that it's not HVAC, and I don't know where the stuff went from with the roof. Did that get included into this, the little bit of savings we had there or not?
Yes.
So that's already accounted for.
and
The track and tennis courts, I mean, I don't know how, or if we could even get them. I don't know, I mean, I know they're in rough shape, and we've had a lot of complaints about them, and
Softball field's holding quite a bit of water.
I would be very interested to see what the lighting cost is gonna be, what the improvements at the athletic complexes is gonna be, and have that discussion as as the
And
alternative.
I'm not talking the whole dig up and all that, I think we talked before, just resurfacing it or repaving it or something, an option there for the athletes.
Yeah. Those would be very
Fix the
helpful.
cracks.
And I know
Yeah.
that there's
Something.
been recommendations to seek out local companies to see what kind of contributions they would be willing to provide, for some of this.
Yeah, the drainage has always been a discussion over there, and I feel like that shouldn't be a problem. It's been a problem since I was in school, and we're on a hill in the middle of farmland. I think we should be able to figure out how to get water away from it. So.
It's just a thought, I know we're really tight on it, but I know that's kind of a big issue.
Yeah, I agree.
It is a big issue.
I mean, we need to get to
We set, when we
Hotel
set out to do this, we all said that we're gonna do the HVAC, we're gonna worry about that before we do anything else. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
We gotta get the health of the buildings first.
Totally, yeah.
What, if we had a cost, or it could, if we ended up
We
finding
could
ways.
substitute, so, yeah.
I tell you what, I think we ought to do, I'm gonna suggest is, let's get into the design on this, narrow things down. I mean, like I said, we're still at the broad perspective. Let us get the HVAC narrowed down before we start chasing wild geese.
Yep.
And if it looks like we're gonna have some money, you tell us which geese to chase, you know?
Right.
That's what we'll do.
I just didn't wanna forget about that completely,
Yeah.
is the only reason I brought it up.
Yeah, I'd say those
Yeah, it was on
are
our
the two geese we're
original
gonna
list.
chase instead
Yeah.
of lighting
And
the
the other
daylight.
consideration too is there a way to limp it along until we get to,
I mean, I think that's
I
already.
mean, the 2030 numbers, it's,
Right. I
we
think
could limp it along to there, and then we could use some of that money to pay for it.
I'm gonna ask a
Track.
wishful thinking question. So could we accept donations for some of those things, like fixing the track or fixing the
Yeah, we
tennis
could
courts?
definitely accept donations.
How does that work? Like, does it just go into the
We accept
operations
them every
fund?
month.
Correct, but not for that. However, we would appreciate that. I look right into the camera for that one.
It's like, we could look at
Camera.
The world.
I should have grabbed the
I think we
microphone.
would accept, we can accept donations and earmark it for,
It actually would go into a donation fund, not into the operations fund, so it would be specifically earmarked for whatever was donated.
So if any of those big businesses out there wanted to help us
Yeah.
get our tennis courts under control,
Mhm.
they could do that.
And
We
and also
give
we
a
have
very
a
nice
construction
sponsor.
fund money
Oh,
still,
thank
correct?
you.
we do have some money in the construction fund.
So I mean, if for some reason one of these things got real close, or if we got some numbers for our athletic complexes, that it's like, hey, for 150,000, we can get this to this
Yeah.
point, maybe we make something happen. But-
Well,
I have, comment makes me think of something that came up in our meeting with bond council and municipal bondholders was every other time I've ever been involved in something like this, where there's been two bonds, we've had to split and have two legally separate projects. They said because of the way you all did your bonds together somehow, I don't even know all the reasons why, you don't have to do that. The lawyers say we're good to just put all the money in one pot and roll. So that makes it far simpler for everybody
Yeah.
involved.
So we don't have to worry about splitting it even.
But
Yep.
the reason I came to me to tell you that good news right now, because when you start talking about money and taking money from over here and adding it to a bonded project, that's a lawyer question.
Yeah.
Good point,
just to
Stacy,
warn
we
you.
can't take, you're right, we can't take the money from this project, this bonded project, and add other money to it to pay for something.
See, I was
Correct.
wrong last time, so I'm careful when I say
Yeah,
lawyer.
that was my interpretation though, but, yeah.
But yeah,
So,
that's
something
the
we have to
caution,
keep in
because
mind.
that very many
Yeah.
times is the case.
But we just need to cross those bridges when we.
Yeah, I think we got a really good start on what we wanna do though, I think
Yeah, I
it's
think you
really
guys made
good.
some good decisions.
Yeah.
I feel way better about it.
So that gives these guys, direction to begin, which right now, if I understand, there's not a contract to design, so that's the next step. Now that they know what they're gonna design, they can issue or offer a contract to do the design.
Done.
And get going. We'll walk along step with them, and Mike and I will work together on the, on the budgeting and things.
And I would assume you would break down even the different types of ventilation on these pictures. Like, I mean, there's got to be a cost difference, right? In some of them.
Yeah.
So that would be something. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else?
Could you step us through the design process and progression and involvement of us and documentation sharing? Just what are you anticipating?
Stacy, from a scheduling standpoint, how far out do you have us going?
I think we were shooting for October to be done with design. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, that's a very fast schedule. We have a lot of field work to do, a lot of investigation. So if we get a contract that says go, as soon as you guys are out of school, we gotta spend time in the buildings, because the time we spent over Christmas break was just to broad brush identify. Now we gotta get tape measures and flashlights and ladders and crawl around and find. So schedule-wise, we're gonna do a lot of field work, start developing a schematic set of drawings, and at some point, I would say mid-summer, schedule schematic design review. Stacy will probably take a look at it from a dollar standpoint. We'll continue to refine into what we call design development, where we put a little bit more detail in, make sure we're still good on budget, and then construction documents starting probably around the end of the summer and run to the finish line in that October timeframe. And during that, as far as design review meetings, I think, it makes sense to have a couple check-ins with you guys to talk scope, talk magnitude, and talk impact.
The other thing that we have is Tecton runs a document control site on the web, Procore. Some of you guys may be familiar with that. So we can give you all access, because what I do for me is I file all of the steps of drawings, budgets, everything in there, so you guys can have access to it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Long lead equipment. So it sounds like we're planning the bulk of this work to be executed summer of 26.
It's gonna depend on.
We'll have to come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
The big thing to think is how long does it take to get a chiller, how long does it take to get an air handler?
Yep.
And so, like the chiller, the timing of, if we contract it, let's say we're done in October, let's say it's contracted in November, and we get it, let's say we get through the submittal process, and it could be ordered in December. Let's just be positive on that. And so when do you put the chiller in? You don't do it in the summer, you do it not in a cooling season,
Yeah.
So it's probably not gonna be here to get done until that next winter, So now we have to work around that knowledge of, well, are we gonna do unit ventilators? Or the new chiller's not there? There's lots of questions about that.
I mean, the new chiller is just a new chiller. It's not changing the process of going out to the ventilators. So putting the ventilators in ahead of the chillers is.
It'd be a little bit different style of chiller, because we need to build a packaged unit, where right now you've got a split unit that's tied to that one refrigerant in the fundability discussion.
But you could hook new unit ventilators to an old chiller.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the questions we'll work to make sure.
Okay.
I didn't want to say that without talking about it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're able to begin reaping benefits of all of this as soon as possible.
So from Tecton's standpoint, we would probably like to say, hey, the unit ventilators, maybe they'll be here in 20 weeks, and we just start putting them in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chiller just doesn't happen until November of 26-ish.
If we had the tonnage and the design, would you guys be opposed to owner-provided equipment where we bought it?
I'm not
Ahead of time, or-
necessarily opposed to that, and unit ventilators, we're doing that with other schools, so that they can go ahead and buy them before everything else is done. It's possible.
The hang up becomes warranty. If something goes wrong,
Yeah.
you're holding warranty.
I wouldn't really want to do it on the ventilators, it'd be more the chiller.
Yeah, I'll tell you that lead times on the chillers, right now they're reliably 25 to 30 weeks. So if we bid in November, we don't need that chiller until the following November. I'm not worried about getting a chiller.
How about the air handlers?
The air handlers, depending which manufacturers we allow, there's some latitude there. Some of them are 20 weeks, some of them are 16 weeks. And those we might want to have a conversation about pre-work, honestly. We can talk about that.
We talked about bond issuance and how we're gonna do that, and what we thought the wise thing would be is that we're not gonna issue the bond and request the money until we know when we need it.
Right.
Exactly when we need it, because we don't wanna have the money and just sit on it while we're paying interest.
You don't have to take it all at once. You don't have to take the lump sum at one time, right?
No,
It's
right,
like a
it's a
savings
lease
account, we
fund,
just pull from it.
yeah, we pull from it, but we're gonna be cognizant of that, so it may not be, if we don't need it in 25, we're not gonna get it in 25.
Right, we just,
Yeah.
whenever they send us an invoice, we'll pull it and pay it from that.
Yeah.
You're
I
not
would
gonna
say with
invoice
the size of
That's,
your
I
bond.
said that's what we had stated in that meeting, correct? Tom?
Yeah, that's always the view of it.
Yeah,
But with the size of your bond, it's probably gonna be one issuance, would be my guess.
yeah,
It's cost to do multiple issuances
Got it.
probably.
okay.
So if you kind of time it to where, they hit about the same time, it hits about the same time as contracts.
Yep.
That way you don't get caught having to pay somebody other than the design team,
Mhm.
Nobody else had anything?
Paul, you raised your hand earlier.
I was just gonna ask,
Kinda quick.
any other
I
comments?
kind of had a question in regard to, and you guys have seen a lot more documents than what I did, but what about single room units and their cost effectiveness? I'm thinking like they may be $15,000 to $20,000 for a single room unit, 15-year life expectancy on 50 rooms.
Yeah,
That would
I
be
mentioned
something
that
that
a
would be
little.
like $750,000 to $1 million in cost.
But-
Can you kind of help
Yeah.
a layperson
You would-
understand that? Because
I had mentioned that a little bit, asking if that would make sense, and everyone snapped at me pretty quick saying I was wrong. But it becomes a maintenance nightmare, for all of that. When you have all these individually housed units, units of that type don't have the life expectancy that the more industrial type stuff does, that we're looking to pursue.
I think you guys have talked about having to change some of those units within 5 years, correct?
That's what you said.
Well,
Or doing some things with the unit.
if you're doing small compressorized equipment, you'll start to see issues in about year 10. Is when you historically some of them will fail early, some of them will fail late. But
Got it.
starting at year 10 and through year 20 is where you see those failures spread out.
Mm-hmm.
And where the air handlers, the unit vents, those types of systems, they're 40-year systems, and we have one compressorized chiller that's got a 30-year life, where if that thing fails in 10 years, it'd be very, very shocking.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's mostly about life expectancy.
Got it.
And so it's not a wrong answer, it's not an answer that is invalid, it's just what's most important and what's easiest for you as a district to manage and maintain and operate
And what's already there, right, I mean.
right.
So we would be looking at coming back to the table in 10 to 15 years versus 40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just heard this week, the school I worked on, in 2017, 18, they put in VRF, partially because they didn't have room to put pipe and ductwork everywhere. And so now here it is 25, they're like thinking about how they're gonna get pipe in everywhere and redoing it all. It's been a hard road for them to deal with that.
Okay.
So good thought, Paul, just
Yeah, totally.
the maintenance and upkeep and the life expectancy kind of undoes the business case for that.
And your guys' point, do you see very many schools doing that?
See if they can get away from it when they do it. Yes, that's what I see.
We've seen some private schools and charter schools take that approach because of low first cost, but they're not sure that they're gonna be around in 10 years. So in their case, it may make sense for today's decision, just because they don't know what 10 years looks like for them.
Anyone else have anything?
I think I'm good.
No?
Say that's it.
I'm just over here thinking, like, if we were to get in a dunk tank, could we raise enough money to fix the track?
You and me,
Willing to
Mike.
have you try.
I actually have a question. Shelby
Yes.
Eastern ran a capital campaign for their ag buildings. They pulled bond money from it, but they also, their FFA kids sold bricks. Why not have your athletic teams sell whatever they need to raise money for the track tennis courts?
It's a good idea.
Good point.
That's
Yeah.
just my thought, and
Yeah.
the school district and the county's doing that.
Yeah, appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Rosie?
This is where you start networking your alumni. 55% of alumni live outside the district. And there are some probably, you never know, who has deep pockets.
Well, we'd be happy to put their name on the building.
Yeah.
Alumni, we're talking to you now.
You don't have to hold it. You really don't.
It makes a better
Make
effect.
sure.
Let them know that I'm talking to the camera.
It's been super beneficial having you too, seriously.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
did
very
a
much.
great job answering questions.
I think you guys had
Appreciate it. I did.
great questions and input.
Good.
This was good.
We're
Thank
good
you.
to, we're good to shut it down, Zach.
All right, so Stacy, I'm gonna ask you, have you ever had a board that is this thorough in their questions?